In this video, you are about to see what Pokémon Legends ZA could potentially look like. While the game has been revealed, there has been nothing directly from the game itself that has been shown off to this point. However, we do know enough details about the game to be able to piece together a pretty solid idea of what we can possibly expect. And in this video, I am going to be bringing those ideas to life to give you all a glimpse of what we could potentially see once we finally get the chance to see more from this game. So with that said, let's go ahead and check it out. So when it comes to visualizing what Pokémon Legends ZA could actually look like, well, it couldn't really happen, to be honest, without today's amazing sponsor, Manscaped, and their Performance Package 5.0 Ultra. Spring has officially sprung, and that means it's time for some spring cleaning. And nothing can help you get cleaned up more than the Performance Package 5.0. I have used Manscaped stuff myself for years, and that's because their products are great, and they don't get any better than in this package. It starts with the Lawnmower 5.0, which is now better than ever with a built-in LED light that can be toggled on and off, interchangeable blade heads, and it's even waterproof, on top of also having skin-safe technology to protect you from nicks and cuts. Like, this thing is honestly goated. Then you've also got the Weed Whacker 2.0 nose and ear hair trimmer, which does an amazing job whacking the weeds in those hard to reach places, and the package even comes with the Crop Preserver and Soother deodorant and aftershave lotion as well. And on top of all of this, you also get 2 free gifts with this package as well: the Shed 2.0 travel bag and Manscaped's own anti-chafing Boxers 2.0. The deal doesn't stop though, because you can also get all of this with the link below for 20% off with free shipping when you use code HoopsVGM at checkout. It also helps the channel too, so it's honestly a phenomenal deal all the way around, so check it out with the link in the description, and a big thank you to Manscaped for supporting the channel. Okay, so first things first, we need to go ahead and establish the setting of this game. We know for a fact that it takes place within Lumiose City in the Kalos region, and that the overall goal of the game is going to be to redevelop Lumiose City into a place where both Pokemon and people can live together. Knowing these details, it is also possible to pinpoint what is very, very likely the inspiration for this game in terms of its overall time frame, since it is a Legends title. This game is very likely inspired by and based on the renovation of Paris that took place within the mid-1800s. This is because Lumiose City is directly based on Paris, and the same exact thing is also happening to it with the previously mentioned redevelopment. Not to mention that if this game were to be based on this event and in this time frame, the mid-1800s, this would also line up with the exact same sort of time frame that Legends Arceus was based on and took place in as well, making this whole idea all the more likely. And any potential time travel shenanigans aside, I think it is pretty safe to say, to an almost certain degree in fact, that this is going to be the base setting of the game, where we're in a mid-1800s time frame that is based on this renovation of Paris. This also provides us with the overall vibe that we can expect to see from this game as well, which is that of a mid-1800s European French sort of aesthetic, which is going to be really fascinating if it does actually happen that way. And between the overall premise of this game and this very, very likely point of inspiration, I also believe that we as the player characters are possibly going to be a part of some kind of group or organization that is tasked with this redevelopment of Lumiose City, in a similar sort of way to what we saw in Pokemon Legends Arceus, where we were members of the Survey Corps for the Galaxy Expedition team, which is another reason why I feel like this idea and premise makes a lot of logical sense. And with any kind of organization like this, you obviously can expect some kind of person to be leading that organization, and I believe that this character is going to be a very important one. And for this concept, this is who I have come up with who could potentially lead this redevelopment organization. This, as you might be able to tell, is an ancestor to Clement, who I believe is a prime candidate to not only have an ancestor character within this game, but also to potentially be in this sort of role as a leader or member of this potential organization. This is because Clement is the leader of the Lumiose City Gym, which is set within the Prism Tower, which is obviously the main focal point of Lumiose City. So I believe an ancestor to Clement, like this character right here, could prove to be the perfect candidate to have this kind of role within the game. This Clement ancestor would be recruiting you as the player at the beginning of the game to join his redevelopment task force, which ultimately has the goal of obviously redeveloping Lumiose City into a place that ultimately results in the unification of people and Pokemon within the city. So naturally, there is a Pokemon side to this redevelopment as well, which is also why this Clement ancestor character is going to act as the quote-unquote professor of Pokemon Legends ZA, who ultimately is the person who gives you your set of Legends ZA starters that you'll get to pick from at the beginning of your adventure. And he gives you this starter in order to help with that unification of people and Pokemon that I just mentioned, and it also serves as sort of an explanation as to why these starter Pokemon aren't your traditional trio like they are in other games, because this isn't a typical professor-trainer type of situation. If you are looking for that traditional starter Pokemon experience though, then you're in luck, because it is very possible that we could also obtain the Kalos starters within the story of this game as well. This is because they are obviously the Kalos starters and therefore are going to be present in some way, shape, or form, but in terms of them having that starter Pokemon role and potentially being a second starter that you get to pick, this is something that could also happen as sort of an homage to the original Pokemon X and Y, where you got to pick your first starter Pokemon at the beginning of the game, and then a little later on you got to pick your second starter within Lumiose City, which is the setting of Legends ZA. And the person that could potentially gift you these starters is none other than the ancestor of Lysandre. Now, obviously there is going to be a Lysandre character in this game, and even though it's very hard to say what role they'll ultimately play at this time, I do believe it could be along the lines of something like this, where this character is not such a bad guy this time around, and instead is more of a research lore type of person that you go to learn a lot about the overall plot of this game and a lot of the heavier background elements of the story. And that is what I sort of envision this Lysandre ancestor doing. He resides within Lumiose City in a place that will ultimately become Professor Sycamore's laboratory in Pokemon X and Y, and he is researching the history of his family and the overall phenomenon of Mega Evolution. He has come to find out that he descends from royalty and is trying to find out more about his lineage as well as its connection to this Mega Evolution phenomenon that obviously traces back to the ultimate weapon that AZ constructed. I envision this character as sort of the lore guy of the game who you go to learn a lot about these background elements of the story and who teaches you a lot about the overall lore of the Kalos region. Eventually, after interacting with him, he would end up giving you one of the Kalos starter Pokemon, stating that these Pokemon are good subjects for Mega Evolution since they're known to have close bonds with people. This would ultimately result in the Kalos starters gaining new Mega Evolutions in this game, and the reason why they would have them here, but not in the modern Pokemon X and Y, is because Mega Evolution is currently occurring in more Pokemon than normal, because the ultimate weapon has been more recently fired off, because obviously this game is in the past. So, more Pokemon currently have access to this power, especially Pokemon that have close bonds with people like the starter Pokemon, and then this could sort of serve as an indirect explanation of how these Pokemon ultimately end up becoming Kalos's starter Pokemon in the modern day, because they are researched by this Lysandre Ancestor and ultimately gain this reputation for being Pokemon that have a good relationship with people and are good to sort of have as a beginner's Pokemon. And then finally, through further interaction with this character is what ultimately could bring AZ into the picture, since they're obviously related to one another, and then subsequently the Eternal Flower Floette. So this is one way that I imagine a Lysandre Ancestor character could be used, and could be used in a good way that is also legitimately possible in my opinion. One thing that we can say for certain is going to be in this game, though, is Mega Evolution. And not just Mega Evolution, we can pretty much say with certainty that we're going to get some new Mega Evolutions in Legends ZA as well. Mega Evolution is obviously going to play a big role in this game, just like it did in Pokemon X and Y, and I think there is a very legit possibility that the Mega Evolutions of Legends ZA could serve a similar role to that of the Noble Pokemon in Legends Arceus, where they're essentially the bosses of this game that we have to battle. With Mega Evolution being present, Mega Evolutions would serve as the perfect equivalent to Noble Pokemon in this game, which is why I think it is something that we could see happen, even if it's not in the same way that we saw it in Legends Arceus. And I also have an idea of a way that it could be utilized as well, because if we look at the map of Lumiose City in Legends ZA, we can see the 5 plazas that dot the center of the map, and I believe this is going to coincide with 5 different areas of the city that we are going to have to work in, similar to how we worked in different areas of Hisui in Pokemon Legends Arceus, and as such, I believe each one of these areas is going to have a boss associated with it. And whether these Mega Evolution bosses are controlled by trainers, or maybe they're out of control Mega Evolutions, that is something that's kind of hard to speculate on, but I do feel like we could see this kind of scenario play out, and these are a few of the Mega Evolutions that we could potentially see as boss characters. The first one is Mega Charizard Z, and I believe that this is a way that Game Freak could get away with giving Charizard another Mega Evolution and have it make sense with everything else that is going on in this game, and obviously that would just be a super cool boss in general. The second one is Mega Flygon. For similar reasons, it would be a perfect opportunity to make Mega Flygon a thing, so I think that makes all the sense in the world as well. And now I have got 3 more Mega Evolutions for you that are made specifically for this video that you have not seen to this point. And the first of those is Mega Dragonite. I've already talked about in previous videos why Mega Dragonite would be a great thing to see and a possible thing to see in Legends ZA, and I think this is a way that it could happen. This design in particular, along with the rest of the art that you've been seeing in this video, was drawn by my good friends Oscar Belmonte and Elesteva 076, so shout out to them and be sure to check them out with the links in the description below. This Mega Dragonite, though, might be a little bit different to what you may have been expecting, because it's actually a Dragon Water type, and this all comes from Dragonite's Pokédex entries, where it is often described as a marine Pokémon who lives in and on the sea, and is also known to rescue people who have become lost at sea, which is also why its wings are sort of in the shape of a cape. It also brings back a little bit of that Dratini, Dragonair type of appearance to appease people who would like Dragonite to be a little more like that, and also to show how it still has that kind of energy and genetics within itself as a Pokemon. So this is a really cool possibility, I think, for Mega Dragonite, and I think Mega Dragonite is something that we could potentially see in this game as well. And then the other 2 Mega Evolution boss Pokemon I have created are Mega Milotic and Mega Noivern. I've already talked about in a previous video why these Pokemon could get Mega Evolutions in this game. Milotic, first and foremost, because it's a Hoenn Pokemon, and Hoenn obviously has its own ties to Mega Evolution, and Noivern because it's a Kalos Pokemon. And other than Diancie, we didn't see any Kalos Pokemon get Mega Evolutions, which I feel like has a prime chance to change in Legends ZA. And while Mega Noivern stays the same type-wise, Mega Milotic becomes a Water Fairy type, which I personally feel like is a good fit. These Mega Evolutions are not going to be the only boss characters that we face in the game though, because if this game is anything like Legends Arceus, then there are definitely going to be other kinds of antagonists that we are going to have to battle throughout our adventure. And one of those antagonists that I believe could potentially make an appearance is some kind of Team Flare predecessor or equivalent. With Team Flare being such a major part of Pokemon X and Y, this is definitely not a stretch, and there's actually a really perfect way to utilize them in this game that could sort of explain the beginnings of the modern Team Flare that we see in X and Y. The way I see it is that this early Team Flare could be led by one of Malva's ancestors, and their ultimate goal isn't really associated with anything to do with the ultimate weapon, and they're also not associated with Lysandre or his ancestor at this point either. Instead, their motivations lie in the fact that they strongly oppose the redevelopment of Lumiose City, and are doing anything and everything they can to stop it. This lines up with obviously it being the goal of the game, so it's a natural counterpoint for the antagonists of the game to want to stop you from doing, and that also lines up with the historical basis of this game as well that we talked about earlier, because Paris's renovation was met with heavy criticism and resistance, which I feel like would find a way to make its way into this game in some way, shape, or form, and I feel like the form it could ultimately take is in the form of a sort of ragtag Team Flare predecessor that is trying to ultimately bring about all of this resistance to the redevelopment. And with Malva not only being a member of Team Flare, but also a very powerful one since she's an Elite Four member, an ancestor of hers leading this Team Flare predecessor organization, I believe makes a lot of sense and would be really, really cool to see. There's ultimately got to be a main big bad villain within this game though, similar to what we saw with Volo in Legends Arceus, and at least within this sort of prediction concept, if you will, I believe that character could be none other than an ancestor of Professor Sycamore. I like this idea because it ultimately flip-flops the roles of Lysandre and Sycamore from Pokemon X and Y, where the opposite character becomes good and evil respectively, and the way I have it laid out I believe also makes a lot of sense. I could see Sycamore's ancestor being the assistant to Lysandre's ancestor character, in once again a sort of opposite role to the way their descendants are in Pokemon X and Y. However, unbeknownst to Lysandre's ancestor, Sycamore's ancestor is secretly more obsessed with Mega Evolution than anyone, which ultimately is why Professor Sycamore, his descendant, becomes a Pokemon professor who is focused on studying Mega Evolution in the first place. So he uses his status as this Lysandre ancestor character's assistant to secretly gather information on Mega Evolution, and then ultimately at the end of the game, he uses this knowledge to Mega Evolve Xerneas and Yveltal in order to help this predecessor Team Flare organization, who he is secretly working with, to stop the redevelopment of Lumiose City once and for all. This ultimately results in you, and it also gives you the reason to find and track down Zygarde so that you can either obtain it or bring it back to Lumiose City in some way in order to stop Xerneas and Yveltal and Sycamore and this Team Flare organization. And this would also result in a showdown in Lumiose City involving Zygarde, very much in the same way that we saw in the Pokemon anime, which was very likely inspired by what was going to happen in the original Pokemon Z before that was scrapped, which is another reason why I feel like this whole concept makes a lot of sense and is pretty logical in terms of the possibilities. is. With that said though, that is a quick look at what I personally believe this game could look like based on what we know now. These are just my own thoughts and ideas though, so you're gonna have to go down in the comments below and let me know what you think about them, or if you have any other ideas of your own as to how this game could potentially play out. Also, be sure to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you haven't already for more, and if you would like to support the channel further, you can do so by checking out my Pokemon remixes on Spotify or wherever you get your music. It is greatly appreciated and helps the channel out a ton right back here. With that said, I'll be back very soon with another new video, and until then, as always, thank you so much for watching this one. I really appreciate it, and I will smell you guys later.